Hey, everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Please tune in to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Meet me on Twitter or X. That's right, at Santita J and the Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page. We are streaming, and we are working to get back to being live, and I cannot wait to do that so that I can really interact with you even more. But we've been having a good time here. And at least one aspect of the show that we've been able to incorporate is the visual. That's why I want you to go to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel and like and share and then subscribe and click that bell so you will be notified when we come up. Please do that because now you can match some faces with these wonderful voices and these brilliant minds. I'm so excited that we're having this conversation. We've had quite the conversation in the last hour about the Trump trial and, what went into the jury, who we have to take our hats off to, because no matter what they were going to really they were listening to the evidence as they understood it, and the directions from the judge as they understood them. And so they didn't jump to a conclusion, they arrived there, and we have to respect that. We do. um, so when I ask these questions, everyone, it's because I see all of these cases really going beyond the person. Like the OJ Simpson case was about much more
Hmm.
than OJ Simpson. Emmett Till's case was about much more than Emmett Till. And we see that, what, 70 years later, when we find out that Carolyn Bryant, who accused him falsely, we find out that the whole state of Mississippi was protecting her. Her arrest warrant was locked in the basement of a Mississippi courthouse, and her
Hmm.
confession is housed in the archives of UNC Chapel Hill. This woman has had the whole system protecting her whole life, and she lied.
Hmm.
And this boy was defiled. He wasn't just killed. No one wants to talk about the details, but he
Mhm.
was accused of a sex crime. So you can imagine what they did to him, as we heard him, as they said, they heard him screaming from the barn for
Hmm.
hours. We can only imagine what they did to Emmett Till. And it wasn't just his face. So when I ask these questions, it's because when I'm looking at attorney client privilege, Attorney Darrell Jones,
Mhm.
chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition, and attorney Terry O'Neill, I know you've got to leave, but the past national president of the National Organization of Women, and Gabe Drobny, a young political organizer who has knocked on 30,000 doors. When I ask these questions, it's because these cases resonate so far beyond the people who are at the center of them. O.J. Simpson's trial happened out of context.
Mhm.
It was after Rodney King. And we knew, George Floyd, this child, Darnella Frazier, knew what was going to happen to this man at 17. So she asked her 9-year-old cousin, go into the store. I'll come and get you. She was a child. This is a child at 17.
Hmm.
But her life experience told her this is not going to end well. So I want us to pay attention to all of this. That's why I'm asking questions, Daryl and
Mhm.
Terry and Gabe, because I want us to get past Trump. We're so stuck on him that we're even missing the pain that people are in. And when you think of all of the charisma that this man has, and that's what he has, it's being misused. And that's what breaks my heart, because as much damage as he's done, he could do so much good. And maybe it's the, it's my Christian training that makes me and my father constantly reminding me, you want to appeal to someone's better angels.
Mhm.
And my father never stops believing that he can convert people. My mother is like, I love him, but this is crazy. Yeah, she does say that. She is like, oh, really? You just need to give up, really. He's like, no, I'm never going to do that. And I'm grateful for that, because you're always kind of looking for something, as Americans are on this second or third republic, Yeah, because America was changed by the Civil War, and America was changed by the ending of apartheid in America.
Mm-hmm.
So that means, we're not on the first republic. No, this ain't 1776 or 1789. There was 1865. There was 1965. That's real, everybody. So where are we in 2025, which is what we almost are? Terry O'Neill, I know you got to go. Hate that.
I know. I'm so sorry.
But no. But I thank you for being with us because you've made some really salient points. Because I want people, because there's some Trump supporter who's listening, and I want them to hear. And there's some other people who are like dangling participles. They're trying to figure out how to complete the sentence. How are we gonna do that? I don't know. And I respect where everybody's coming from. I don't have to agree with you. And I hope that on this platform that we can really encourage people to disagree without being disagreeable. Let's talk with each other. Because at the end of the day, as Reverend Jesse Jackson said, we came over here on different boats, but different ships. We're in the same boat now.
Yeah.
We just really are. All you have to do is look at TikTok and see how white folks are dancing like black folks now. Yeah. No. No. There's something called Americans are a new thing. We've come up with a new culture. I'm not joking. We are very, very much a part of each other, whether we like to admit it or not. We are. Okay. And it's not just dancing. It's our thinking. We don't want to talk about class in America. Class is real because people who are moneyed, white, black, yellow, and red, think another way. They do. People who are in power. I don't care what your background is. You think another way. Michelle Obama, and I dedicate the show to her today and her brother Craig, because our forever First Lady lost her mom.
Their mom, yeah.
And someone who I had known since I was 14. Wonderful human being. Wonderful human being. And Bill Walton, a great progressive who played in the NBA. Cannot forget about him. He saw my father at the NBA All-Star game just a few months ago. And he saw my father and he shouted from across the floor. He exclaimed, should I say, Reverend, and he walked over and gave him a kiss. He said, I'm just so glad to see you. And then it just broke my heart to know that someone who, with all of his talent, for all of his brilliance, he was vilified because he was a progressive when he was playing basketball. You remember that, Terry. You might not remember that, Daryl, but I do. And so, Terry O'Neill, your thoughts?
We are on the brink of really making some major decisions in this country. And I have dedicated myself for the past year that I've been in Tennessee to working at the community level, community organizing, community civic engagement, trying to build civic engagement. And
why?
Because I think there's not enough of it in Tennessee. I think there are too many people whose voices are silenced. Remember, Tennessee has become a full-on authoritarian state. Now, the governor has not begun to mobilize the military like in Texas. The governor has done that, but short of that, the governor has absolutely half the population has been blocked from meaningful reproductive health care. It's not available. 20% of the population is not allowed to vote at all. It's mostly targeted at Black people, but it's also targeted at college students, high school students, so young people and low income people. And so what they've got is minority rule because not that many people can vote and not that many people can really. So many people are second-class citizens. Well over half the population are now officially second-class citizens in Tennessee. I want to change that. And I think that happens from the ground up. Clearly, it's not going to happen from the top down. Washington is frozen and has been, Santita, for 10 years or more. The Congress has been frozen for 10 years or more, no matter who's in the White House, right? So I've been doing community organizing because that's where I think I can see some movement and some possibilities. I look at people, so beyond that, I look at people like the young elected officials. I know Cori Bush is being hammered right now by corporate Democrats, among others, which is reprehensible in the Democratic Party. AOC, same thing. Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, extremely courageous members of Congress, those women. I think they really are the future of our whole country. I think we are going to be going through a bad patch in the next 5 to 10 years, no matter how this presidential election turns out. But the kinds of ideas that AOC and Cori Bush and Ayanna Pressley and Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and the entire progressive wing of the Democratic Party, they have ideas about actually taxing wealthy people, about breaking up trusts, and about real antitrust enforcement, about building a middle class by making sure that the most powerful people stop behaving as if the rules don't apply to them. And that's not just Donald Trump. It is Peter Thiel. It is Elon Musk. It's the most powerful tech overlords that absolutely don't think the rules apply to them. And guess where they're putting their money? Into the Republican Party. Again, not just Donald Trump. They're putting it in the Republican Party, whose blueprint for the future is Project 2025, a full-on authoritarian vision. So we are in for some real rough times. But I think the real moral energy in this country is with politicians like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman. And whatever happens to them in the short run, they are the moral future for this country, and they will continue to be leaders in this country. So I have a long range optimism, even if short range, I'm not all that optimistic. But remember, I thought he would have corrupted the jury. I didn't think that the jury was going to come back with a thing. So my pessimism was misplaced. And let's hope that my other pessimisms are equally misplaced.
Well, you know, these progressives that you mentioned as you go, they have votes. They ran in competitive races and they appealed to the people. And I don't think we should ever forget that.
On the issues, yes, that matter.
They resonate.
Yeah.
No, I mean, like you said, on the issues that matter. And Cori Bush, God bless her, we got to help her. I mean, Rashida Tlaib, I'll always have so much respect for this young man. I can't believe it. He's escaping. He's a dear friend. But he was offered $20 million to leave his Senate race. Hill Harper, to run against $20 million, an APAC affiliated gentleman, offered him $20 million to leave his Senate race to run against Rashida Tlaib.
Wow.
$20 million. And he said no. They pulled this guy out of the first Black prosecutor, Darrell, down in St. Louis to run against Cori Bush, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they pulled together his campaign so hurriedly, they put white tape over his, whatever his name is, bless his heart, for Senate, and they just and he had a press conference. They had to put, you can't make this stuff up. I will send you the pictures. He has white tape. Did you see that, Darrell? Gabe, did you?
I did not see that.
He had to put white tape over the Senate.
And for Congress instead of for Senate. Wow.
Yeah. And yeah, but Reverend ran under Reagan.
Mm-hmm.
Crisis creates opportunity.
Exactly.
So,
Yes.
so I'm not upset about it. I think this is a time that we need. It's making us talk to each other. It's making us stand up. Wherever we are, it's getting people active.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me is important. I can live with your opinions even if I disagree with them.
Mm-hmm.
It's the inaction that will kill the American project. The American project requires that everybody get involved. If we don't get involved, this thing will sink. We will go from a constitutional republic to a constitutional monarchy. Watch. You got Meghan and Harry over here. Okay, if you're going to be an American, why are you a Duke and a Duchess? Are you for real?
Yeah.
No, because I take being an American very seriously. Don't bring that to me. Not here.
Mm-hmm.
Now you go back someplace else with that. But here, George Washington said, I will not be a king. I will be a president. Yeah, he was a slaveholder and all that, but he got that part right.
Yeah.
So there we go. I love you, Terry O'Neill.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody. See you guys later.
Good
Okay.
one.
Oh, and thank you for helping to keep us on point. I love my sister Terry O'Neill. Love her, love her. And but I thank you all for being here so that we can talk about these issues because Daryl and Gabe, I think that they are very, very important. That's why Dr. Gibbs' book, The Revolt of the Rich, I want people to get it because we need to understand why we're here. We don't want to talk about class in America. What was shocking about the jury was that they would not be moved, as the song said. But the story that's not being told is the role that AI played in the selection of the jury. So what does that mean? Will AI work for people or against people? And no, I know I'm digging deep. I'm digging deep because these are the things, Black people and Hispanic people over-index in the prison industrial complex, not as workers, as prisoners who are workers for not just corporate America, but for the oligarchs, because they have almost free labor in the prison system. That's real. And that program was run through our own Department of Justice. I mean, really? Fruit of the Loom was coming out of the prison. Victoria's Secret was coming out the prison. So I just want to know, what are we looking at here? I think that having a trial over essentially Stormy Daniels to me was and you know what we're not talking about? We're not talking about how these cities are dealing with the migrant crisis. And no one has even mentioned the tent program for refugees, which is a collection of more than 400 corporations who are bringing people in from other countries into the so-called developed world so they can work basically for free or for below wages. So am I not telling the truth? I'm like, why aren't we talking about that?
I wish I knew the answer.
But I think that you're right on the point, though, Santita, because this is the time. We're at a really precarious time in our country because we have so many issues that are boiling under, some just underneath the water, many overboiling, right? So I think that as we get into the thick of this now campaign season with the debates that are going to be coming up, with the Republican conference that's coming up, the RNC that's coming up, the DNC that's coming up, all of these issues now will come to the forefront. When we get to Chicago, and the discussion, is going to be about, I guess perhaps less about Trump, more about, I think, Ukraine, more about what's happening in Gaza, more about, those various issues that everyday Americans are dealing with. And they're going to see it all coming together. And I think that, it's my hope that at that point that really Americans will then start putting at the forefront what this election is all about and what it really means and what it comes down to. I don't know that it's there right now. I think there is still the glitter and the shoulder shrug of Stormy Daniels and for most Americans. Let's go on our day. My kids' soccer is too high. I can't afford the gas. I need the food. All these other issues that are very important are also weighing on people. But there has to come a point in time where, and I'm hoping that it happens through the debates, that it happens through the conventions that are going to be going on, that Americans really begin to focus on what's happening with us and what we need to do to try to navigate our way out of the mess that the country is in right now.
But how can we do that when all we're hearing about is this trial? And, every single day. This is, and I think that people need to talk. I want us to get this out because that they're leading the news with that. When poverty has risen in America, it's higher now. There are more hungry children going to bed. Inflation, people cannot afford. If you work one job, you can't rent in the city where you work in your job. If you want to talk about Trump, he's not a magician, but he is speaking to pain and anger in a way. I can't have the Democrats continue to tell me everything's all right. Well, things have gotten better. Are you crazy?
Right.
No, For most people, I know what I just spent in the grocery store this morning. I can go get some odds and ends, and of course, I'm going up and down the aisle, and I'm gonna go and get the brown gravy. Why I did that, I don't know. But I'm getting this stuff. I didn't get. I got one low protein. By the time I filled up my 2 bags, it was $100.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm like, what? No, I got 2 low proteins, but little. I mean, little. I'm like, and I look. I mean, and the cashier cannot afford to shop in that little store. That's horrible. And this is the second time I've asked the cashier that this year. I'm like, do you shop here? She said, absolutely not.
Mm-hmm.
How horrifying is that? That you work in a place filled with food and you can't shop there. Who does that?
And you're right on point, Santita. And I guess part of people get focused on the sexiness of the trials and stuff like that. But when it comes to those hardcore issues, and as I was telling you previously, I just came out of a conference where there's a big discussion and all the pollsters and everything. The number one issue for Gen Z's housing security and wages, right? What can I afford? The rent's too high, right?
But wait a minute, they don't want to be homeless.
They don't want to be homeless. They don't want to be or have insecure housing, right? Mm-hmm. Meaning that you're living with somebody, but it could be removed at any point in time. It's not your place. Your name's not the one that's holding it.
You're teeter-tottering on the verge of homelessness.
And that also includes college students, right? Absolutely. Because college students are there as well. You have some very insecure housing situations for college students. When they're not in school, where do they live? Where can they afford to live? And those are some of the major issues that people are encountering. The migration crisis, that's an enormous issue. But if you ask, are you more concerned about the migrant crisis, or are you more concerned about eating? Are you more concerned about the migrant crisis, or are you more concerned about your housing? Are you more concerned about the migrant crisis, or are you more concerned about being able to work and having a good job and be able to afford children and pay for your family or whatever your family makeup is? Those are some of the core issues that are out there that we're not hearing about right now. But that's what I think, particularly for Gen Zs, that particularly is one of the things that's hitting them really hard right now. And I'm sure Gabe can speak to it much better than I.
Oh, look, I'm too old and crusty. Because my friends are in a different space. But I know people who, when they're talking about, when you drive through these fast food restaurants, and you have our elders working there. People can't retire in the United States.
Uh-huh.
And they've raised the prices for the fast food. Right?
Hey.
Right? So, it's difficult to afford.
My mother told me not to go to this place because that coffee costs too much. Mm-hmm. It was like, wait. I said, I cannot believe I bought a little sandwich for you, for Dad, his caregiver, me and somebody else who was here. I spent $25 at a fast food restaurant. Gabe, what? Help me. Help.
Well, I can see, and I see the validation of what Daryl Jones said about what Gen Z's major issues are. But the reality of Gen Z is, especially in primaries, they vote in very low numbers.
Why? Why?
So let's pivot back to Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman being under scrutiny, being under attack, and being primary. We young people want to look up to someone who looks like them, who talks like them, and who inspires them. Okay, so let's look at Jamal Bowman. He's up against a 7-year-old wealthy white guy. Young people are going to be fuming if we lose Jamal Bowman. Mm-hmm. Young people are going to be fuming if we lose Cori Bush. It is going to deplete them. It is going to make people lose hope. It's going to make young voters lose hope, and then they're just going to think nobody can do it. It's only the select few, and I'm not the chosen one. And that's a serious issue. That's a serious issue. People do feel that they are alien. Young people feel they are alienated from democratic politics, and that you can only be in it if you're a nepo baby or if you have serious financial backing. And it is an issue.
Well, how are they looking at? So this trial, is that kind of like going over? Are they like really? Or I mean, what? How are they feeling about this?
You know, if you look at the ratings now of CNN, Fox News, and of news, you know, people my age do get their news from TikTok, Facebook, you know, social media outlets. So, and then there's going in back to AI, that algorithm, it's not really showing the Trump case, right? You know, young people my age don't come home from a night out and flip on the news. Those days are over. You know, the newspapers are almost obsolete now. That's why they're all digital. And now you have to buy subscriptions. People my age are not going to buy a subscription for the New York Times. They're just not. So the Trump trial, it's not being messaged to people my age. It's not majority speaking. So I'd be willing to bet a lot of people my age don't even know that Trump even had a verdict. In all honesty. So I can't say it enough. It pivots back to, we want representatives that talk like us, look like us, and speak our language. Representative Ilhan Omar, Representative Rashida Tlaib, Representative Ayanna Pressley, Summer Lee. So if we lose a Jamal Bowman and a Cori Bush, you know, I love those individuals, but they are metaphors. You're gonna alienate people my age to really, really lose faith.
So let me ask you, if someone from Generation Z, or you said a primer, is that it?
A primary?
If they were channel surfing, you know, and there's a science to radio listening, television watching, all of that, and you have like 15 seconds to capture someone's attention. If you don't capture their attention, Daryl, they switch over.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, literally, on television and on radio, you're measured in these 15-second increments. Might have even gotten smaller since we talked about it a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, you know, because people were saying, you know, you got to talk about Trump. You got to talk about Trump. And as I was talking with Reverend Jackson about the Keep Hope Alive show, about, you know, where to go with it, I said, people do want to talk about Trump, but I think we need to take another check. He said, absolutely. He said, voting rights.
Mm-hmm.
He said, you know, we can't, because he's not one for getting caught up in personalities. He's like, because all that fades. People are going to get tired of talking about Trump eventually. That is the way
I think they already are.
So you tell me, what about the young people? I mean, if they were channel surfing, and if they heard the conversation about Trump, would they just turn away?
Yeah, they would. I do think though that, you know, what resonates well though is Trump is a convicted rapist, and that is serious.
Okay.
I mean, that is unacceptable, and that is a serious issue. It is a serious talking point. But it could, you know, it just gets overshadowed by just an abundance and a flood of media. You get drowned, and and it's just so negative. You know, every time you read in a political news story, it's never anything positive. It's just negative. Campaigning right now, there is an epidemic of negative campaigning. There's no positivity. So that's why when AOC came along, she primaried Joe Crowley, and she made that campaign ad that went absolutely viral. If you watch it, it's a really good ad. It's positive, and that's why she is the face of the Progressive Caucus. And then you add on Jamal Bowman, Cori Bush, Ayanna Pressley, Summer Lee. They are icons. I promise you. Like, I'm wearing an AOC shirt right now. People love the squad. We love them.
What do you love about?
You want to see a young person's face light up? Mention one of those names. They'll be beaming.
Why?
Because they're different. They inspire hope. They sell hope. It's not negative. It's not talking about, you know, boring rhetoric, you know, not being unworldly, only speaking one language, you know, being a very wealthy multimillionaire who walks into every meeting with a $2,000 fitted suit. Young people, it doesn't resonate. So until you know, that's why look at Chicago. Mayor Johnson is beloved with people my age. They love him. They think, you know,
really.
Young people my age love Brandon Johnson because he speaks their language. He's cool. He's vibrant. He's a phenomenal public speaker. He sells hope. People want to be sold hope. They don't want to be sold negativity.
So when we see his unfavorables, you know, in the polls, that's not what's happening with young people.
Unfavorable in terms of what?
Well, I mean, his favorability ratings are abysmal, and many people are
For Brandon Johnson.
Yeah, they're tying it to the migrant crisis. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah, which is true. Which is true. Mayor, but once again, that goes into now you're talking about win strategy and win numbers. People my age vote in low numbers. So how do you inspire that? As we talked about last time I was on the show, you got to build from the ground up. You need more ethical candidates, and that is going to take money. The money is out there, but we got the recruitment needs to happen so proactively so that they can be trained and they're prepared for when these blockades come up. Because as soon as you get blockaded by the powers that be, is really, as you know, Santita, it is really, really hard to bypass them, and you have to have a lot of composure. It's really hard on yourself personally, your family, and it alienates people, and then people quit. So until we recruit the talent that is out there, it is going to be hard to really have a mass movement the way we would love to see it.
But Santita, I do want to just push back a little bit on what Gabe said about his generation in voting, because the Gen Z and young millennial voters, they're voting in greater numbers now than ever in this country's history. They're out there pushing the numbers, and the more success they see, the more they're going to be encouraged to vote. The Confederate statues that came down, that was Gen Z that did that. The push for all the environmental change that we now have right now, that was Gen Z that did that. The whole push for the climate change, that was Gen Z that did that. The more success they see, the more they will vote. So I don't want people to listen to the show and think that Gen Z isn't doing its job, that Gen Z isn't politically active, that Gen Z isn't paying attention. They are paying attention, and they are focused. And it's a matter of, and I think what Gabe is laying out, is that you've got to give them a reason. You've got to give them hope. You've got to give them the belief that they really can reach the levels that they want to reach and have the impact that they want to have. And I think it's all incremental, as you love to say, Santita. It's not a microwave change, right? It's not going to change immediately, but you've got to take the steps. You've got to plant the seeds. You got to water it. You got to fertilize it, and you got to grow those candidates. So when we have the Maxwell Frost that's there, he is the only Gen Z that's actually in Congress, right? We have 435 members of Congress. We have 30% of the country that is Gen Z and young millennial. There should be so many more Gen Zs and young millennials represented in Congress that are not there. And until we start having that success, and when the Gen Z starts seeing and feeling the power of their vote, the power of the success, then I think you're going to see even greater numbers of Gen Zs that are there. We know that as of this year, 2024, that the Gen Zs and the young millennials now as a voting block constitute the largest potential voting block in this country. The question is, will we allow it to happen? Will the country allow it to happen? These are all the measures you're seeing to make it more difficult for Gen Z to vote. This is the reason you're seeing these. They're trying to block college students from having ease to the polls. They're trying to make it more difficult for absentee voters, for them to be able to access the absentee ballots, to be able to vote. Make it more difficult is what they're saying. Make the drop boxes only available 9 to 5 when they're working and can't get to them. These are the steps they're taking because they see the power of that Gen Z young millennial vote. And once they get a stronger taste of the success of their vote, look out, could come into the polls, and they're going to be voting for people that represent their interests. That's what I think we've got to push in the messaging here, Santita. And that's how we deal with a lot of the issues that we're talking about today.
Well, but I think that having been said, you're right. But we have to listen to, the people who, because Americans ought to be voting. We're not voting in the numbers that we should. We have to talk about that. We also have to look at, because we have to understand that this fight is something that you have to be in for the long haul. Mm-hmm. You see a bipartisan coalition of Floridians who said, give ex-felons the vote. Then you see the Republican legislature, literally over the next day, they're starting to overturn it. Helping people to understand, and you and I talked about this before we came on the air, and I want you to participate with us, Gabe. We have to help people to understand the power of their vote. That's where Max Frost, he was driving an Uber. That's where he comes in. We have to help them to understand, yeah, you can do this, you should do this. Yeah. That's where Stacey Oh my goodness.
David States?
In Georgia.
Stacey Abrams.
Stacey Abrams. They said, well, she doesn't have any money. She said, yeah, I'm broke. Yeah, I sure am. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where, at some point, that's where because I was in Washington with Mayor Marion Barry,
Mm-hmm.
who did not hurt anyone but himself.
Right.
He had a drug problem. A lot of folks had drug problems, but you know what he didn't have a problem with? He didn't have sticky fingers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What he did do was empower a whole group of people who've been completely marginalized in Washington. The best you could do was get a great government job.
Mm-hmm.
He created the Black entrepreneurial class. You have BET because of Marion Barry. Because we didn't know all of the resources that were in municipal government and how much money, and people became extremely wealthy off of city contracts. We didn't know that, but if you had a mayor who was blocking you or who wasn't letting you know, you weren't going to get in. He made more rich people. So it's like, wait a minute. That's why I think having really understanding the power of the vote, what it's for, and why they did not want those million plus ex-felons in Florida to vote. Because see, they see something different.
Mm-hmm.
They see something different. And we have to, that's why watching, I mean, how ironic. Donald Trump, lock her up, lock her up, lock her up, lock her up. Life comes at you fast. You better watch it, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I take no joy in what he is going through. And I say that because he's a human being. And I just can't turn that loose from, no, I just, as a person, you know,
that's his problem.
Well, you know, I'm gonna tell you when I was you were not born yet, but George Wallace, who was the governor of Alabama in the 60s, he was one of the most disliked figures in Black America. He was beloved by some, and really detested by others. On the Black side, he's someone who blocked Black kids from going to college, going to desegregating the University of Alabama, segregation now, segregation forever. That's what he said. And he ran on that, even though he started off his career as a progressive, as a populist. But what worked was anti-Black racism. So he wrote that. Okay, if you know his history, that's what he did. But he was running for president in 1972. And I came home from school, Gabe, and my mother sat me down and she had some cookies and milk, which was odd because even then I was on a diet. And I said, okay. I didn't know because her tone was so somber if something had happened to my father. And if she was trying to slow walk me into, I didn't know. So I just sat there very quietly and she said, you know, your father's work is very dangerous. And we have to be prepared for anything. We know what happened to Dr. King. I was about 7 or 8. And I said, okay, yes, Mom. She said, you know, and today, you know, Governor Wallace, George Wallace, and because we talked politics, my parents talked politics at our dining room table, of course I knew who he was. She said, well, you know, he's running for president. Yes. He was shot today. Not yay, he was shot. It was like, oh, wow, really? She said, yeah. Because she understood that it could happen to anybody from the right or the left. It doesn't matter. She said, we're going to pray for him because, you know, he's got a wife and he's got children. And I know they can't be feeling good right now. So that's why my approach on this show is even what it is, because I don't want to become what I don't like in others. We have to be very careful of that. Dr. King wrote the book, The Strength to Love. And where do we go from here? Chaos or community? We have to make the decision. You can't be a little bit pregnant and you can't have chaos and community. You got to make the decision.
Yeah.
You know, and we have to make the decision about where we go from here. Dr. King is just in my spirit right now. Where do we go from here? What are we going to do? You know, are we going to have a judicial system that works for everybody, that's fair? Are we going to let people, once they've paid their debt to society, vote again, why don't we let people vote when they're in prison anyway? They help to comprise congressional districts.
Yeah.
You know, we heard this morning the two whitest states in the union. You vote in jail.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you remove that vote? Why do you remove that right from somebody?
Mhm.
And so now we have, so it is fitting that the Law and Order Party has as their presumptive nominee someone who's a convicted felon.
Yeah.
Now you know what? Ask some fundamental questions. If you're gonna let him vote, then you need to let a lot of people vote.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying don't let him vote. Oh no. I want him to vote. Now I want you to let everybody else vote.
Yeah, that's really what it's
I don't
about.
have a problem with the migrants getting some money, and a lot of that's overblown. Now give everybody else the money. You're giving it to Ukraine, you're giving it to Israel, you're giving it to Taiwan, you're giving it to everybody else on war. You're not giving it to me so I can eat. We're asking the wrong questions.
There's a lot
We're
about that.
framing these discussions incorrectly.
Yep.
I'm not trying to take something off of your table. I'm trying to put something on your table.
Mhm.
How about that?
Mhm.
How about letting everybody vote? You can find me if you want to audit me. You can find me if you want to conscript me. Why can't you just register me to vote? Why can't you just do that? Why do I have to jump through all of these hoops?
Yeah.
And it should be automatic.
Yep.
You're right. You turn 18, you're registered to vote. You're automatically registered to vote, whatever state you live in. The rules don't change whatever state you go to. I mean, this sounds like basic stuff that should happen.
Well,
right?
why don't we have that, Daryl?
Consolidation of power. But going back to what Daryl's conclusion thesis was, Daryl said it really well. I mean, that is a solution. What he said earlier about, we have to give people hope, and I agree with him. I'm not trying to come off as there's no hope, it's over. But the recruitment, like let's get more. I was thinking about it the other day. How many Black female U.S. senators have been elected in the United States history? Not a lot.
Carol Moseley Braun.
California now is going to have a white
Kamala
senator.
Harris.
That's a
about
serious.
it.
That's a serious issue.
Yeah.
That's a crisis.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, but Daryl, I mean, what do we do? I mean, because I think even in this moment with President Trump, put voting rights on the table.
And that's got to be the push. Yeah. One of the things that gets me now, I just came out of a forum where they were discussing the African American vote and why Black people aren't voting in these high numbers and are projected to not vote in high numbers in the 2024 election. The one thing they did not say, right? They talked about, they're upset about the economy, they're upset about this, they're upset about that. What they did not say are the roadblocks that are being put in place to prevent African Americans from voting. The intentional actions, the consolidating where polling places so that your polling place isn't in your community. You got to go at a distance to be able to vote, and you don't have transportation. You got to pay to get on the bus to go vote. Or because the polling places are consolidated, that it takes longer for you to vote. In the white suburbs, if it's 20 to 30 minutes to vote, that's a long time. In the predominantly African American areas, that goes up to almost an hour to be able to vote. Think about this. If you're working, you've got to take your break from your lunch break to try to go vote, or if you have kids, an hour is an incredible amount of time out of your day if you have a family and you're trying to get everything going. So, when you start consolidating polling places, you start limiting who has the ability to vote, who has the luxury to take that time to stand in line to be able to do that. One of the things we saw in Georgia with the absentee ballots, right, is limiting the time for them to be returned, when they can be received, going into all the exact name match, going into all of these little things that have an impact on people, requiring people to send in a copy of their driver's license or proof of identification along with the application to get a ballot. Why does that sound? Why is that oppressive? Well, what do you need in order to send in a copy of your license? You need a copy machine, right? Who's sitting around their house with a copy machine? What, you want me to go to the library now to make a copy to come back and to mail this in? That's a supportive, that's a voter suppressive technique that is being used. So we have all of these enablers, all of these roadblocks, all of these barriers that are put up to make it more difficult for people to be able to vote, and they really angle it into the community of color. And then they ask the question, why aren't you all voting in the numbers that you should be voting in? Well, because you've made it that much more complicated for that vote to occur. You made it much more difficult for the African American to be registered. You intentionally confuse a point that you were just bringing up, Santita. You intentionally confuse returning citizens who have a felony on their record as to whether or not they can register to vote. And then in the state of Florida, you say, by the way, if you register and you're wrong, it's a felony and we're going to come and convict you. We're going to come and get you.
I'm coming to your house.
I'm coming to your house.
Say, I know you have a record. Wait a minute, it's the police, as they say in the neighborhood, the po-po. They knock on your door and they say, are you planning to vote? It was documented. I mean, what? And I'm saying that in this moment, while we have this moment with Trump, while all eyes are on him, can we not at least put voting rights on the table?
Mm-hmm.
Because you have a convicted felon. Wait a minute, I ain't got a problem with a convicted felon voting. Because in Vermont, if you're in prison, you can vote.
Mm-hmm. It's same in Maine, same in the District of Columbia. Same in the District of Columbia. Matter of fact, in the District of Columbia, they voted into office someone who is incarcerated. While they were incarcerated, they were voted into office and they held office.
And
so
good.
Let the voters make those decisions. Don't take the vote out of people's hands. Don't do that. This is a democracy. Let the majority decide who should be in place. And we don't even talk about the Electoral College, Santita.
I have no words for that.
Yeah, that's all. That's it. Yeah.
But you know what? That's why I said we're like on our second or third republic, because we continue to look at France and say they're on their fifth republic. No, the Civil War, that was the creation of the second republic. The breaking of apartheid in America, that's the third republic. That's Voting Rights Act. Because what Lyndon Baines Johnson saw was that, wait a minute, in 1870, y'all got the right to vote. It's been 95 years. You don't have it yet? No, we need a Voting Rights Act.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So I'm saying now, instead of saying, we can't gloss over the fact that he can vote in Florida. What we need to do is zero in and say, I want you to vote, Donald Trump. I ain't got a problem with it. But I want these 1.3 or 1.4 million people who you all have tried to scrub off the rolls. I want them to vote too.
Right.
In Colorado, wherever we have this issue, I want us to be able to vote. I want you to be able to vote in prison. How about that?
Right. Florida is second to Mississippi with the number of disenfranchised voters. Florida is second to only Mississippi with the number of total disenfranchised voters in the country. And it's horrible. It's horrible. In the state of Mississippi, Santita, and I know that you know this, in the state of Mississippi that has the highest population of African Americans anywhere in the United States, if a person is convicted of one of their felonies, they are disenfranchised. In order for that person to gain their voting rights back, their right to vote back, there has to be legislation that's introduced to the General Assembly that's got to pass by over 60% of the General Assembly and be signed off on by the governor in order for that one person to have their right to vote restored. That's un-American. That is just not right. It's not right. The answer to it is the Freedom to Vote Act, which is a bill that's in Congress right now that would just, across the country, make everything even, right? The playing field even and the rules the same wherever you are, Mississippi, Montana, or Maine, wherever you are. If there's an infringement on your right to vote because of a felony conviction, it would say this is how you get it back. When your feet are in the street, you can vote. If you're not incarcerated, you can vote. it would just level that playing field so everyone's playing by the same rules. So that Mississippi doesn't have this overly onerous law that's in place, and Florida's trying to follow in its footsteps. That's not what we need. What we need, and Gabe's generation is the generation that's going to be pushing forward, is that we need people to be seen as people and not as prisoners, and to be seen as with eyes of love and not eyes of hate, eyes of lifting them up, not eyes of pushing them down. That's what's needed right now, and the vote is the way to get there. And it's just so important for us, I think, to push forward on the message of voting, because voting will be the key to getting the representatives to pass the legislation to get where I believe this country can get in its democracy.
Was the late Reverend Frank Watkins, one of the great unsung heroes of the civil rights movement. As he said, your right to vote paves the way for all other rights. It's the key to all others. And so in this moment, as everyone is looking at Donald Trump, let's look at the real issue. You have a convicted felon, which is what he is now, who's going to be allowed to vote. I don't have a problem with that. I want other convicted felons and ex-felons to be able to vote. I want prisoners to be able to vote. If they are going to supply the numbers that give you a congressional district, they should be able to vote.
Mm-hmm.
Stop looking for reasons not to enfranchise people. That's not what America has evolved into. The America that started in 1619, the Anglo project and this European project, no, that's not the America we're fighting for now. I don't care what they had in mind when they said slavery was going to work. We needed that. No, America has grown. We have had a lot of progress. We have. We just have a very long way to go, because that's life. Life is struggle, everybody. That's the reality. So, I'm just really glad that I've had the opportunity to hear from you all today. And how can we get in touch with you, Daryl Jones, at the Transformative Justice Coalition? I want to remind everyone, WOLDC at 12 noon every Tuesday Eastern Standard Time. Daryl Jones, you'll get a chance to hear he and the equally brilliant attorney Barbara Arnwine on their radio show. So you can find out about what's happening in the world. 12 noon Eastern Standard Time on WOL. Just look them up online. You can go on and be a part of that show. Gabe, how can we find you?
I need to work on that. I have a LinkedIn.
We're gonna get you hooked up.
There you go.
We're about to change some things. Yeah, because I'm just getting into it myself. Look, honey, I'm twisting knobs. I'm just on StreamYard. Don't think that I'm just some expert. But I hope that we'll really begin to raise the right questions, everybody. Stay focused on that which is important. Don't get sidelined, waylaid by a lot of the foolishness that is out here. We're going to be talking with Daryl Jones going forward. And Gabe, I want you to join us on how to vote. What happens when you go into the polling place and you find out you've been pushed off the rolls? What do? I mean, what happens when you have been in jail? I mean, can you vote? Who do you ask when you come out? You certainly can't ask the election judges, because many of them don't know. I mean, that's not what they were brought in to do. They're not judges, really. They're just there to help to facilitate your vote. We got a lot of work to do. And we do need to continue to press the president to sign an executive order on voting rights. These are votes that you need, Mr. President. You need these. You need these votes. And you're not going to be able to tell people but Trump. That is not going to work in 2024. They don't care. They don't care. They really don't. They want their wages raised. They want the corporations to stop gouging us and raising their prices, because that's what this is. But we need you to take on that fight. And whoever sits in that seat needs to take on that fight, or we need to get you out. I'm Santita Jackson, AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. May God bless you real good, everybody.